And we have with us today the founder of Children Helping Poor and Homeless People, Christine Schanes.
And her husband and program co-director, Ron Taylor. Welcome both of you to Living Lives.
You two met and got married as a result of the organization, but you feel like you would have hooked up anyway. And tell me about that.
Well, I drove truck and did part-time acting in Bakersfield, and Christine would come up and practice law there. She was with the Attorney General's office at that time in California. So, you know, many times. And then I always vacationed over in San Luis Obispo, and she would be over there. Other cities, and then I was doing a film down on the Speed Zone with John Candy on the pier, Santa Monica Pier, and she watched every day of the filming. We were there about 4 or 5 days. And
so I'm watching
so
my future husband, not knowing
you look smitten still saying it now. but Christine, Ron was homeless when you met him. So what was it about him that was special, that helps you see beyond his situation, would you say?
Well, Susie, I never saw his situation.
You did.
He was just a person. And Ron has a very magnetic personality. And when we first met, we were at a meeting, and we were introduced by a mutual friend, Len Dosette, who's since passed away. And Ron was there to lead the meeting, so we could facilitate homeless people and housed people. And all I could think of was, who is this person and why is he here? But later on, we started working together and eventually got married.
Ron, now, how did you end up living on the street? I mean,
well, I was in a really bad car accident in 1985. A couple of years of physical therapy and steel plate and 6 screws in my arm and considerable damage to my back and neck. Became almost unemployable, you know, for insurance purposes. And it took about 8 years, actually, to become homeless from that point.
Wow.
Finally losing my house. You know, my wife and I split up, and so it was a long-term thing. But I've always felt that it was proof positive that it can happen to anyone.
Absolutely, and I was going to say that. I was going to say that most people say that the average American is only 2 or 3 paychecks away from being homeless. So it's not unusual for an individual to end up on the streets in today's society.
How did you get yourself back on your feet?
Well, right here, you know, I've heard a lot of people say that, you know, they pull themselves up and got out of homelessness without any help. They're obviously lying, because that doesn't happen.
Really,
if you don't have help, somebody care about you. One of the questions I was asked by was a comparison about someone else on the street that had the help, and I had a conversation with Chuck Negron of 3 Dog Night about his situation, and he said had that one person not believed in him and kept that belief, he would have died on the street.
So that's lovely man.
Yeah, Chucky Negron is quite a guy.
Yeah, and his situation was much worse than mine.
Right.
You know, much worse.
Because he had the involvement with the drugs as well. Yeah, Ron, you refer to Christine as the Pied Piper because of how she deals with kids. And tell me something about that.
Well, if you come out and do the program, which we hope you do, you'll see that the children respond to her in a way that I don't think I've ever seen it with any other person. We have children who have been with us from kindergarten through college. One young lady is now in graduate school. She's been with us since kindergarten. Mark's kids have been with us since 2nd grade. It's a program they just seem to want to come back over and over. And like I say, I've never seen anyone get children to respond. I think it has a lot to do with she doesn't talk over their head, or it's directly to them, no matter what the age.
How did you decide to work with children in this charity? From your own children, or?
Well, it was actually my children's idea.
Really?
To tell you the truth. I was working downtown as an attorney on the 52nd floor of a building, and far away from my children and people on the street. And I was concerned, I lived in Venice, and I was concerned about people walking by my home. I was concerned for my children, I was concerned for the people walking by my home. And my best friend, Augustine LaFontaine, said to me, well, give them a blanket. And I said, well, give them a blanket. And so I did. I went home and I walked down the block and gave the gentleman a blanket, and felt so relieved. I was halfway across the street, and he said, well, thank you, God bless you, sister. And I turned to him, I said, well, thank you. You're welcome, sir, God bless you. And went home and told my children about it, and Chrissy looked up at me and she said, well, Mom, we could do that. Like, no biggie, you know. And so it was really their idea, and we gathered up. The friends sitting at the table went home and gathered up blankets, and I called parents to make sure the blankets were donated. And then we went to the beach. And then we went to the beach and gave away the blankets very quickly, a minute and a half or less.
I think this is just beautiful, though, teaching kids about humanity, though, really. It's wonderful for them, obviously.
It's good for all of us.
Of course.
Let me just ask you this. How do you explain to the kids about a society that has these many homeless people and the reasons for it?
Well, I always ask several questions when we have groups, and we've been doing this for 20 years. But I always say, has anyone here seen anyone they thought was homeless? And all the hands go up, which is really shocking, no matter what the age of the volunteer, very small to very old. And I'll say, well, I'm 59 years old. And when I was your age, the only people that were out there were generally men. And we called them hobos. It was kind of a romanticized living. They made movies, Emperor of the North and others. Today, there are no movies. 50% of the people outside are women and children. There's not only no movies, no one's talking about it. So Ron and I often get invited to civic organizations, the movie organizations, anywhere. We'll go anywhere and talk about who is outside and why they're outside.
Now, we have a lot of elderly people that are on the streets now, which is something that we really never saw. I never saw as a youngster, because one thing that I would say about the society we came up in as young people is we did take better care of our old people. And there just wouldn't be that sort of a situation.
I remember the first seeing it, well, except that I lived in Korea, places where there were when I was a child. But I remember in the United States, the first place I saw it was when I went to New York as a teenager to model. I was shocked that in our country that there were people, and this is, you know, I hate to say 40 years ago, but it's just amazing that it's gotten worse.
Well, for the first time, the statistics have said that 39% of the homeless now are runaways. Teenagers, 39%.
Teenagers, kids.
Amazing.
The kids and the elderly are.
Now, you got Mark Hamill, who's a huge star. Everyone knows him from the Star Wars movies and everything. How did you get Mark involved in this?
Well, I think that, you know, that Mark is kind of, first off, he's probably one of the shyest people I've ever met. But his children, he wanted them to know that, you know, that there were people that needed help. And he's never been afraid to let them go out and, you know, be around homeless people. He's just an incredible, the whole family, Mary Lou, Nathan, Griff, and Chelsea are just amazing.
They have huge hearts.
They do, and they feel that doing something, not just, you know, giving money,
but actually getting
really getting involved.
Let me ask you, you both lived very different lives, obviously, before you met. How would you say that your lives have changed since you've been together?
In every way?
Really, in every single way?
Well, I know I was 52 when we got married, and I feel that, you know, the love of my life at 52. I mean, so it's never too late, never, you know.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I mean, such positive energy from both of you tackling an incredibly difficult situation that we have here in Los Angeles and all across the country. Thank you so much for coming and telling us about it.
We do have a couple of T-shirts for you here.
Oh, you do?
Kind of keep this crew in line.
I love swag. I really do.
Yes,
Thank you.
The right size. What does it say?
That you're open to opinions as long as they're yours.
Suggestions as long as they're open to suggestions as long as they're mine. Well, my husband will think that's perfect for me.
And Meshach may remember this. In 2002, there was a calendar, and Mark Hamill was kind enough to appear as our star.
Yes.
And there was a gentleman right here
on
behalf of 5 Acres.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so
I'm doing something for 5 Acres, a home. It's a facility for homeless, abused kids.
Yes.
Okay, and if you'd like to find out more about children helping poor and homeless people and how you can help, go to their website at chphp.com or call their 800 number. Coming up later, there's a new film based on the life of France's most famous torch singer, Edith Piaf. We'll have a sneak view of La Vie Rose.
And we have more ahead when Living Live continues right after these messages.
Thank you so much.